Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
A very, very good evening. Wednesday, the 8th of January 2024. My name is Raja MIAH. This is a Reticent 9 transmission. Let me just straighten my... Sorry, I'm just looking at my tripod. If the camera collapses during this broadcast, it's because my tripod probably needs tightening. What on earth are you all so miserable about? Ye of little faith. For those of you new to me, you need to understand something. We have led them such a merry dance in Oldham. And let's be clear, it doesn't matter how many people who are now suddenly turning up with their fancy suits or jumping on the bandwagon and claiming they did this, they did that, they did something else. No, it was the people of Oldham who did this. And we have given them such a runaround in this town, in this council, a Labour Party run administration, that we have took out 3 successive leaders and forced this issue into not the national spotlight, but the global spotlight. And I don't know about any of you, but I'm just warming up. You all know I describe the campaign in Oldham as an insurgency. And the left-wing idiots who've tried to mock me, like, what is this idiot on about? Well, because we're fighting forces far stronger than us, and we're using a form of guerrilla warfare that is more used in, let's just say, places where democracy does not thrive and the system is rigged. So those very same tactics and techniques I have deployed in Oldham, which is why we've done what we've done in Oldham, which is why we've managed to do what we've done now nationally. Now let's just pause for a moment. Let me put my phone on mute. When we started this journey, so much as saying Pakistani rape gangs, so much as using the term Pakistani rape gangs could lead to your arrest. The very news agencies that have been using it now, they would interview survivors and completely omit the race and ethnicity or the religion of those who'd groomed and gang raped them. BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Telegraph, Guardian, Daily Mail, you've all seen it. They'd omit it. As recently as, I think, 3 months ago, a judge made a victim take out of her victim statement, completely unprecedented, her belief that these men were, members of a Pakistani rape gang and that they should be deported. That dam has now burst. They can't hide behind that anymore. The Home Secretary stood up in Parliament 2 days ago and used the term Pakistani heritage rape gangs. It's finished. The leader of the opposition, I'll play the video in a bit, the leader of the opposition got up today in Prime Minister's questions and essentially repeated word for word what I said the night before. Or have I got it wrong? So we are not the only ones who are thinking this way. People from across the entire world are thinking this way. Which is probably why this morning Elon Musk waded in and retweeted a post from us thanking him on behalf of the people of the town. Last I looked, the best part of 3 million people across the world had seen it. We have got Conservative MPs, Reform MPs, parroting what we have been saying for a number of years. Now they're some way away yet, and they've yet to work out that as intelligent as they are, they do not have the experience that we have. And maybe, if they had any common sense, they would have spoken with me. More than just what Rupert Lowe did. Now, Rupert Lowe spoke with me last week, last Friday, the Reform MP. And 3 days later, Nigel Farage is talking about a public inquiry that he'll commission himself and he'll fundraise. Now, let me tell you what should happen and why it should happen this way. Because, my friends, if this is a game, I have been playing this game with next to no resources against overwhelming odds and holding more than my own for the last 6 years. So give yourself a slap. This is just warming up. And irrespective of the vote, the country has changed. And the world, the entire world, is watching. Let me go onto the GB News webpage, I think. But first of all, let me say some good evenings to people. Apparently I don't do this enough, which is why I don't generate enough income and all of that. You need to press like, I'm told. You need to press like. Someone just texted me, a friend of mine. People need to press like. There's something like 80 likes and 500 people watching at my end. So please like the video. If you've not subscribed to the channel, it costs you nothing to subscribe to the channel. You're all here because you want to listen to what I've got to say. I'm sure most of you got better things to do at 9:30 on a Saturday night. And my apologies for being late. But I had life things to do. I normally don't put out 4 transmissions in a row. It's you know those people who do it on YouTube, like Maya, Tusi and those guys? I don't know how to do it. I really don't know how to do it because there's just me here. Let me. Oh, please, yes, like. Thank you very much. I see a burst of likes. Like 20 more people have just realised they need to like. My internet connection might go. So if it does, just stay where you are. And of course, the work I do is only possible with your kind support. Just under 4,000 people joined us last night. I think something like 15 people so much as bought me a coffee, pressed one of the links and bought me a coffee. And there were 2 super chats. There was one lovely super chat for someone for £100, but that, and then there was something else, and that was it. So the work I do is only possible with your support. No one pays me. I am out of savings because of 6 years of fighting them in court case after another court case. You've all heard of the term lawfare. Well, I'm still here. I'm still smiling. And these people, Keir Starmer, Jess Phillips in particular, does not know where this is going to go. We did that some time ago, but it was costing me more to keep the Shopify shop open than what people were buying. Maybe I'll go back and do that. So please, if you can, support me. I don't need you to support me if you support me yesterday or the day before, but there are plenty of you here who haven't supported me. Gary indeed has got a baseball cap. There were only ever 2 baseball caps, Gary. Well, some sort of caps. You've got one and I've got the other one. Right. Are we ready? Okay, let's start. No, you're commenting fine. It's here. I've not shadow banned you. I've only set this up so subscribers can comment, as in, anyone who just subscribes to the channel. So that I put no filters on. I'm a free speech advocate. Unless you start, being abusive to me or abusive to some of the community, I have no interest in. You can air your views. GB News' webpage. Sorry, I need to put my headphones on in case there's something here. Labour votes down national inquiry on grooming gangs in major blow to victims. Bollocks. I'm sorry. These people are late to the party. This isn't a major blow. This is a massive win. Let's see. I'm sure there'll be a video. Let's play it. Once my internet loads.
To the right, 111. The nose to the left, 364.
The ayes to the right were 111, the noes to the left 364. So the noes have it, the noes have it. Unlock.
So every Labour Party MP voted in line with the whip to block a public inquiry. And the Prime Minister's arguments were that a further inquiry could delay action. It's nonsense, as Kemi Badenoch pretty much shared word for word about the incrimination of Labour Party MPs. She stood up and said that. She stood up and said that in Parliament, in front of the world, of the incrimination of Labour Party MPs. Labour MPs have voted down a proposed national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch tabled an amendment to the Children's Wellbeing and Skills Bill earlier this week, calling for a full inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. The bill was rejected in the Commons by 364 votes to 111, a majority of 253. The move was branded as an act of cowardice by Conservatives following the vote. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Phillips said, "It is disgusting that Keir Starmer has used his supermajority in Parliament to block a national inquiry into the rape gang scandal. Labour MPs have put their party ahead of getting to the truth and turned a blind eye to justice for the victims. Labour MPs will have to explain to the British people why they are against learning the truth behind the torture and rape of countless vulnerable girls. Why they are against learning the truth behind the torture and rape of countless vulnerable girls. We will not let them forget this act of cowardice. My friends, when we began this journey together, the torture and rape of countless vulnerable girls, and it has got to be in the hundreds of thousands. It's definitely in the tens of thousands. It's got to be in the hundreds of thousands. We were told we were far-right racists, and this was a conspiracy theory. Now, no one, not even anyone in the Labour Party, will dare claim that. Now the question is, and the question that the Labour Party and Keir Starmer are trying to avoid, is the truth behind the torture and rape of countless vulnerable girls. Countless I will take to mean hundreds of thousands. So the situation we've got, let me just save my give me 1 second. I just want to see if I've managed to load an album up yet. Who knows? No, it's not come up yet. It's okay. I can do it without. So what's taken place is, now that the vote was gone, the Conservatives have been evasive as to what they'll do next. Nigel Farage has talked about launching his own public inquiry. Now, and they'll raise the money, and he'll get retired judges or retired teachers, police officers, social workers. And I mean this with the greatest of respect, Mr. Farage. You've not stopped to understand how this can be done. It's not what can be done, what can't be done, it's how this can be done. In a public inquiry, a judge-led public inquiry will have no teeth whatsoever. And let me explain this to you so everyone understands. Say he raises £1 million for it, or 2 million. I think the Telford inquiry in just one town cost £8 million. I went and looked, I'm sure it was £8 million. What they'll have to do in Oldham will cost at least £5 to £10 million, unless they try and rig it, which they will do, and I'll get to that probably on Sunday night. Say he creates a structure for a public inquiry. Say he does that, and he appoints a panel and a judge, and there's 50 towns, because he seems to be working hand in glove with GB News and what's the lad's name? Charlie something or another, yeah? And he reckons he can get it done in a year or 18 months. I need to be honest with you. for the sake of the survivors, for the sake of their families, and for the sake of all of us involved in this campaign who've worked tirelessly for as long as we have. He's talking absolute nonsense. And I'm saying this as a supporter. Maybe nonsense is wrong. Maybe he's too enthusiastic. He's been too enthusiastic with what can be done in the time span he's making reference to. The next issue we've got is the collating of evidence. Now, I have no doubt whatsoever that if we created something in a certain way, we could easily get victims from across the 50,000 cities and beyond to come forward and provide their testimonies. We could do that. And that would be an important first step. Because what that would do, and remember in Oldham, we took it back 6 times, Lewis, 7 times, Dave, Mark Wilkinson. We took it back 6 times, 7 times before we decimated the power base, before we got the letter sent off. That triggered all of this. If I was advising these people, I would say do what we can with the power that we have and use it to go back and smash them some more. That's what I would do. I would set up a truth commission. A truth commission comes from a time I watched it play out with interest in just post-apartheid South Africa. A Truth and Justice Commission. I think they called it Truth and Reconciliation in the end. Of the injustices done by the state to its people. So I would set up a Truth and Justice Commission. And I would lay out that this Truth and Justice Commission has 3, 4, 5 stages to it. And the first stage would be a 9-month period. I'm into my 9s, but it could be 12 if you wanted. You'd finish by the end of the year. You could finish it by December. And I would set up a Truth and Justice Commission that goes to every one of those 50 places, presents to people why we are here and what we hope to do. Go to one place a week and take testimony. And all the time in the background, there's online reporting that can take place and case building. And by the time we are finished, we will have the testimony, I believe, of 10,000 children, if not more. I would then use that to go back and demand, put another motion down. Remember, this was just a motion put on amendment. This was an amendment. Opposition parties have days in Parliament where they can bring forward bills, they can bring forward motions. We can think it through far more effectively. And we can put it forward for a full public inquiry, because now we've got the testimony of 10,000 survivors who were failed across the country. I would like to see 300 Labour Party MPs say no. If we go forward with trying to deliver our own public inquiry, we'll have a situation where the survivors will come forward. 100%. I have no doubt about that. But we will not have any powers. Mr. Farage won't have any powers. None of these parties will have any powers to go seeking evidence. They will use every data protection law against us, and they will prevent the release of documents. We will have no powers to call witnesses. And we will have no powers to safeguard those witnesses who come forward testifying on our behalf, never mind those witnesses who we want to ask questions. So for instance, a public inquiry would without doubt question Angela Rayner and her role in the cover-up in Oldham when she signed off that press release with Jim McMahon and Debbie Abrahams, where she endorsed this report. Because the question I would ask her under oath is, when she signed that report off as the most thorough she'd seen and it's date stamped, I would ask her, when did you first see the completed report? And there'd be an evidence trail. So Angela, you read 300 pages. Did you see the appendices, the confidential appendices? No. So if you didn't see the confidential appendices, how do you say it was one of the most comprehensive reports? We would rip them to pieces. As it stands, we would have no powers to do that, and this will fall flat. And then what would happen? 3 years will have gone by. Survivors will have been failed again, unintentionally this time, I accept, or naively, or through ignorance. Survivors would have been failed again, and none of this stuff works. So I've seen all that stuff. None of that stuff works. Forget it. I'll tell you now, forget it. What happens is survivors will be failed by the very people who we want to champion them, the only people who can champion them in a political space, and we will lose. Now, what does this guy know about any of this? If you want to change the system, if you want to hold power to account, the first thing you've got to learn is the rules of the game and how to navigate the system. And that is why we've absolutely decimated the Labour Party at a local level. That is why we have absolutely decimated them. Now, what do we have on our side? We now have the world on our side. We now have every decent person across this country who is not aligned ideologically to the Labour Party on our side. And we know what they're going to use against us. They're going to use against us, we're getting in the way of their work. Well, we're not. You get on with your work. We've launched our own Truth and Reconciliation, or Truth and Justice Commission. And the first stage of that Truth and Justice Commission is that we are going out and gathering the testimonies of survivors across the country. Are we getting in the way of any legislation doing that? Are we getting in the way of anything that the Labour Party are doing that? No. So in the same way, we're clearly, the Conservative Party policy team are engaging with us, whether they like to admit it or not. I would like to hope that those people who are advising reform, and I know they're working at pace, will pause to think on what I've just shared. So that's the first phase of what we should do. The second thing I want to talk about is how the mainstream media have engaged in this. And how, even though they know who we are, how they've excluded us from the process. Now, am I angry? No. I am just disappointed because at a local level, there was an attempt to rewrite history and cut out our sacrifices, and now we're seeing the same played out at a national level. And the problem with that is all these people do is go and find survivors and tell the stories and go and find survivors. Oh, this happened, oh, that happened. There's nothing higher up. There's nothing to the left or the right. So there's nothing about the actual communities that facilitated the grooming and the culture within that. There's nothing about those who were responsible for the cover-up. And if they had come to me, I would have given them this. And I believe Jess Phillips's career, future, well, let's just say she would have a very hard time continuing. And then maybe today would have been different. But these people, they were in Oldham. Not once did they call me. Not once did they contact me. They even went and interviewed the sectarian Pakistani Oldham group councillor, who squared up to me at the count last time because of my campaign against Pakistani rape gangs. Now he's suddenly switched sides, but they've got no content, they've got no currency, they've got no detail, they've got no analysis. And if you had come to me, Charlie Peters and all the others, this is the story I would have shared with you. No one's going to do that, mate. No one's going to do that. The police are complicit in this. If the police are going to arrest anyone, it's going to be me, Sammy Woodhouse, and those of us who've been very vocal over the last few days. If you're finding value, please do consider buying me a coffee, a samosa, a super chat, whatever it is. I'll have a look. Thank you so much to the... Oh, that's nice. 8 of you who've bought me a samosa. Very kind so far. Julie, you've been with me from such a long time. Your father, George, whose funeral I went to, I miss dearly. George put his suit on at 95 years old and came and stood by me in court whilst I was pleading not guilty. George, and sorry Julie, I'm going to do this, then sent me £1,000 to help with my legal fees. And that was because I opened my mouth. And I have been consistent on this throughout. All you have seen, I've been consistent on this throughout. And those who want to make a name for themselves, when you don't have the decency to contact me and speak with me and try and rewrite history, well, this is what you miss out on. Small Heath is the area that Jess Phillips, the minister, what is she? Safeguarding for girls and women? She's this thing about safeguarding girls, champion of women. This young girl, young woman, young girl. I'm looking at the photograph the same as you are. This young woman, Shabina Bano, has defected to the Liberal Democrats after a 2-year dispute with the Birmingham Labour group. You can see the date, 13th of September 2024, so it's very recent. Small Heath councillor quits Labour to join Lib Dems amid bullying and misogyny claims. Birmingham Small Heath councillor Shabina Bano has quit the Labour Party and joined the Liberal Democrats after a 2-year dispute over claims of misogyny and bullying. In a damning resignation statement, she accused the City Council's ruling Labour leadership of failing to properly address her concerns, first raised soon after her election in 2022. Councillor Bano claims her allegations opened her up to further harassment, gaslighting and factionalism. The Labour group does not reflect my values, she said in her parting shot. The Labour Party and Birmingham Council both pledged to investigate when she raised a series of alarming allegations last year. The findings of their investigations have not yet been made public, nor have separate inquiries by the City Council Standards Committee into the actions of a trio of councillors been put in the public domain. Earlier this summer, when asking about the outcome of the investigations, we were told by the council, while the investigation is approaching a conclusion, it is not yet complete, and as such, we are not in a position to publish the reports. 3 separate inquiries were taking place into the actions of 3 unnamed councillors, we were told. We understand counterclaims about Councillor Bano, understood to have been made by those under investigation or the supporters, have also been probed. When asked about that, Councillor Bano said she had no notification of any formal inquiries, but it would not surprise me that dirt is being thrown. Ms. Bano, a mum of 5, said she had been left broken and anxious over the handling of the complaints. She said, "Today, Friday, when I woke this morning knowing I had left Labour, it was the first time I had done so without being gripped by stress about the day ahead. It has been a weight on me for a long time. If anything, I wish I had done this 26 months ago. 2.5 years, give or take, over 2 years. My father was a lifelong Labour activist, but these are not the values of his Labour Party." Remember, Small Heath is Jess Phillips's backyard. Birmingham, yeah? Her initial concerns, dated from 2022, had been set out to the Labour Party in a 15-page document. She later shared her evidence face-to-face with the party's campaign improvement board that was set up to probe Birmingham Labour Group amid multiple concerns. Jess Phillips, Birmingham Labour Group. This is the young lady. There was still no action at that time in early 2023, so in a subsequent interview with Birmingham Live, she further set out her complaints, which focused on the actions of a small number of men. She claimed even people who professed to stand up for equality had let her down. Who do you think the people who profess to stand up for equality are? Who do you think she's making reference to? Failing to provide, ready? Read it. Failing to provide safeguarding support. She claimed that there were multiple failings by the Labour group in Birmingham, the council and the Labour Party to fully investigate. Safeguarding support from Labour HQ, safeguarding support of a young female councillor. Safeguarding support from Labour HQ, given the nature of allegations, was non-existent, she said. She described a subsequent leak of her complaint, shared across social media platforms and with fellow councillors, and the public outing her as a complainant as a horrific experience. She took a complaint, and I've got the complaint, and I will share with you the complaint. Don't you worry about that, Labour Party scumbags. Don't you worry about that. But they outed her and made her a target because of what she detailed in her complaint. Following our story outlining her concerns, the complaints were investigated fully. Bullshit. But in a resignation statement outlining her decision this week, Ms. Barno referred to the complaints and the handling of them. I am writing to formally and with immediate effect resign from the Labour Party. Having represented Labour as a councillor for Small Heath ward, this decision should be difficult. However, after 28 months of an institutional campaign of harassment, I have concluded that Birmingham Labour does not reflect my values. She claimed to have experienced bullying, misogyny, gaslighting, duplicity, dishonesty and factionalism during her time serving the council and now wished to move on. She said the fact that this has gone on for so long and the leadership, Jess Phillips, has continually failed to address my concerns or resolve the wider issues within the party demonstrates this. She claimed the council chamber was being used by Birmingham Labour as a battleground for factionalism, claiming the party is deeply divided and the corrosive infighting is having an impact on the ability of councillors to serve their residents effectively. I have consistently sought to raise my concerns through the appropriate channels, yet I have been deeply disheartened by the lack of understanding and support from the party's leadership. Anything to say, Jess Phillips? She claimed that as a proud, independent Pakistani woman, significant, proud, independent, she had experienced hostility and marginalisation that had left her disgusted and disillusioned. I want you to keep that word with you, disgusted, because I was disgusted. I can no longer remain in a party that silences and sidelines individuals like me. Individuals who work hard and strive to serve their communities with honesty and dedication. Despite the personal attacks and challenges, I have always done my utmost to represent and serve the people of Small Heath ward, and I will continue to do so. And then she goes on. This is not an attack on any individual, but rather a reflection of the toxic dynamics at play within Birmingham Labour. So she's posted some stuff when she was younger. She'd apologised for them, but this isn't what this is about. This isn't what this is about. Those of you in Oldham will know that Gary Tarbuck and I went and campaigned on behalf of a Pakistani young woman, councillor now, not too dissimilar to this one. Western looking, liberal, so on. Educated, independent. And it's a matter of public record that a group of Pakistani men attempted to smear her, because she was running as an independent against the Labour group at the time, just as a genuine independent at the time, not member of the Pakistani sectarians, attempted to smear her by distributing some form of video of her, shall we say. Yeah. Outraged, we went and campaigned for her in some of the white areas and made sure people from some of the white communities in the ward voted for her, and they went and voted for her, as we explained what had happened. Because we are not the racists, and we've never been the racists. We have strong principles. Right is right, wrong is wrong. When this young woman got elected, and she told me this directly herself, so there's not I heard from him or she heard from someone else, and I'm using the Oldham story to go back to this story in Birmingham. She told me how the councillor from the Oldham group and his mates, so Councillor Abdul Wahid from the Oldham group that Charlie Peters went and interviewed today and gave legitimacy to, and his mate Cammy G, Cameron Gaffer, and a group of men repeatedly visited her house. And in the end, she had no choice but to sign up to them. You do not give men like that legitimacy, Charlie Peters. Councillor Abdul Wahid and Councillor Cameron Gaffer, Wahid, and correct me if I'm wrong, members of the Conservative group who are on here, was expelled for anti-Semitism from the Conservatives. Thrown out. And you believe this man suddenly cares about working class white girls? No. Councillor Cameron Gaffer was suspended, refused to take the training on anti-Semitism, and they parted ways. That is who the Oldham group are. They are Pakistani sectarians who put pressure on the one woman, Pakistani woman, who'd got herself elected as an independent, where she was then made to join their group. Both Councillor Abdul Wahid and Councillor Cameron Gaffer have immediate family members convicted of drug dealing. In fact, both of them have immediate family members who are convicted of this belonging to the same gang. There will be no negotiation from me with Pakistani sectarians. Not now, not ever. Because what these Pakistani sectarians want, they are playing with fire, because they are whipping up the Islamist element, the identity element of that, and fighting with Labour. And it's one cartel fighting another cartel. That's what this lady here from Birmingham is basically describing. Factionalism. One clan fighting another clan. One clan trying to outdo another clan. The misogyny continues across both. The negative views and opinions of people from other communities, particularly of the Jewish community. I will not have any of that. I've seen their text messages about me. He's a Zionist. No, mate. I'm just not going to ever advocate the killing of anyone. I don't care who they are or what they are. I have seen battle zones. I have never seen good come out of killing people. Mass. Whichever side. Never. It's easy watching TikTok videos and saying, oh yeah, jihad this. Fucking idiots. First thing they do is puke at the sight of blown up body parts. Not celebrate them. So this girl in Birmingham, in Jess Phillips' backyard, is claiming misogyny and how the Labour Party let her down. Why didn't you use this? If you're such experts, why didn't you use this? It's in the public domain. If you wanted to go after Jess Phillips, why didn't you use this? Who wants me to share her testimony online? I have it. Who wants me to share her testimony online? It says he has it and I'm waiting to find it. Yeah? Let me find it on my phone. Yeah, I've got it. Why is it not coming up there? It's okay. It was sent to one of my confidential accounts. Sorry, that's why. Let me just do something at my end to get it to where I need it to be. Sorry, I have a whole host of things where I hide things in different ways. It'll pop up on my screen in a minute. Here we go. If you're finding value in this work, and you are new to me, like some of you are, and if you continue on this journey with me, you will see that I'm not a journalist. I am a campaigner. And there is a fundamental difference. And I'm not playing at this. This is what I do. This is the report concerning the bullying of harassment of a Birmingham City Council councillor. You know who it makes reference to. This report concerns the treatment of a local councillor, Mrs. Shabina Bano, who was elected as a councillor for Small Heath ward in May of 2022. Mrs. Barno has been the victim of bullying, harassment, victimisation and misogyny since the beginning of her campaign to be selected and subsequently elected as a local Labour Party councillor for Small Heath. All the information contained within this report has been taken from in-person testimony given by Mrs. Barno herself. She has provided her full consent for her testimony to be used for this report and is happy to corroborate any of the details contained therein. Herein, Mrs. Barno provided a testimony drawn on throughout this report out of concern regarding the behaviour of several Labour councillors and activists in Birmingham. It is a hope that her experience and testimony can help hold those responsible to account and ensure that no other woman is subject to the distressing behaviour she herself has endured. Mrs. Barno believes that the culture of sexist and misogynist bullying must be addressed to ensure that women feel confident in coming forward to stand for positions in the local authority and the Labour Party respectively. Mrs. Barno believes the failure to hold the individuals responsible for her ill treatment to account will not only damage the good standing of Birmingham City Council but also the Labour Party more widely. The report will begin with a summary and then move on to a more detailed chronology of events. The allegations made by Miss Barno relate to several sitting councillors, some within positions of authority within Birmingham City Council, as well as several Labour Party members who worked with her on her campaign. Jess Phillips's backyard. Remember. The first question I would ask before I carry on that, if I had possession of this document, say 36 hours ago, rather than getting your sat nav out, getting lost, driving up and down the streets wondering where this street is or that street is, I would have phoned my contacts in Birmingham and asked Birmingham Labour Party, Jess Phillips's Birmingham Labour Party, Minister for Women, I've done this, I've done that, I've done everything else. Do you know Shabina Barno? Her white, pale face, it's been very pale the last few days, would have gone even more pale. The next question I would have asked is, Jess, you're the MP, you're an MP. Did she come to you wanting help? Did she come to you pleading for help? At misogyny, at serious safeguarding concerns. You're now the Minister for women, for girls, safeguarding. You've been on the telly talking about all the things you've done. Here is a young Pakistani woman councillor in your own backyard. Did she come to you pleading for help? The next question I would ask is, did the Labour Party investigate her complaints? Will you share that report with us? And if I was an investigative journalist, I would then go and get a copy of that report. Wouldn't you? And this is why it's important. Summary. Can you see that? I can make it a bit bigger. All right. Mrs. Barno has been the victim to consistent bullying, harassment, victimisation and misogyny since August 2021, when she was first approached by the perpetrators of the bullying and harassment to run for council. Mrs. Barno was subjected to this abusive behaviour by a group of men, some of whom hold positions within Birmingham City Council, and some of whom are prominent activists in the Labour Party, and that these individuals work together to influence politics in Birmingham in their own interests. Several of these individuals are guilty of grossly sexist and misogynistic behaviour towards Mrs. Barno, and others express views and attitudes that are directly contrary to the values of Birmingham City Council and the Labour Party. At least 2 of these individuals detailed in the report have made statements consistent with extremist views which are contrary to the values of Birmingham City Council and its Labour Party. Let me read that and again. At least 2 of these individuals detailed in the report have made statements consistent with extremist views which are contrary to the values of Birmingham City Council and the Labour Party. Some of the individuals involved have links to Trojan horse schools and were themselves subjected to scrutiny for their roles at these schools. Those of you who were listening carefully yesterday will remember me making reference to Trojan horse. To my American supporters, Trojan horse scandal was the report of the attempt for Islamists to take over schools in Birmingham. That's right, for Islamists to take over schools in Birmingham. The statement given by Mrs. Bano clearly demonstrates that a clique of individuals within Birmingham City Council and the Labour Party are attempting to exercise undue influence over local democratic processes, attempting to install individuals who will follow the diktat of senior members within this clique. What she's describing is a cartel. What she's describing is a Pakistani cartel. And the Pakistani cartel that first thought they could use her as a puppet, and when she tried to express herself as an independent woman, the bullying, harassment, victimization and misogyny commenced. And she went pleading to the Labour Party as a woman. And are you telling me that Jess Phillips was not aware of this? This young woman is a councillor in Phillips's backyard. Mrs. Bano first approached to run as a Labour councillor for Small Heath ward in August, was first approached, 2021. She was approached by a number of men, some of whom were sitting councillors at the time. Amongst them was councillor blah 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 blah. These men approached Mrs. Bano at her business premises, asking whether she would be happy to stand for local election, as they needed an articulate woman to stand in Small Heath. Given that Miss Bano had expressed interest in local politics as far back as 2011, she was happy to agree to put herself forward and thusly submitted her application. She was then approached by a man called Mohammed Imran. Imran identified himself to Mrs. Bano as Dragon and clarified to her that he would do all within his power to assist her in getting selected and elected as councillor. So a man called Dragon comes on the scene. Mr. Imran called Mrs. Bano shortly after she had submitted her application to stand and stated that she had no votes in Small Heath and therefore needed to approach prominent local individuals to gain their support. Mr. Imran's suggestion was that she approach the sitting councillor for Small Heath, Mr. Zahir Khan. Other councillors also said the same. You need to go to Zahir Khan to win his support, and thus the local votes he was said to control. How do you control local votes? Mrs. Bano then approached Councillor Khan and asked him for his support. Councillor Khan agreed to put his support behind Mrs. Bano and that he would help her throughout the campaign to secure the seat. In particular, he pledged votes within the Labour Party that would ensure she was selected as a councillor. Nothing untoward, really, in that first bit, apart from a man called Dragon turning up on the scene. So she was selected. And then a local Labour Party activist with close ties to Dragon, Mr. Imran, and the aforementioned councillors, Mr. Ashroff's first private communication from the individual came on the 1st of February at around 1:30 a.m. Mrs. Banner recounts confusion at being contacted by Mr. Ashroff, whom she did not know personally and had not met at such a late hour. The message sent to her, and remember, an investigation, the message would be on the, there'll be a data print. The message sent to her was about her Facebook account. Mr. Ashroff has screenshotted a Facebook comment allegedly posted by Mrs. Banner, which contained problematic views regarding Zionism and the State of Israel. It's a common thing amongst this demographic, unfortunately, but there you go. She closed her account the same month. A separate account was open, blah, 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 12:30 a.m. And someone had basically hijacked her account or something, right? That's not the bit I want to get to. Someone else had control of her Facebook account and was speaking on her behalf. The men behind her, they were already trying to use her as a puppet. This, however, was simply the first explicit example of these men taking advantage of and manipulating Mrs. Banner. What followed was an intensification of this behaviour. Something about getting rid of sitting councillors. Blah, blah, blah. Ignore all of that. The situation made Mrs. Banner feel as though she was being exploited, so she was just a puppet. A fight occurred between councillors or campaigners. This is what I mean about cartels. If Saqib, so she gets threatened, if Saqib goes to Shabina, you're out, remember that? Because of the fight. Mr. Saqib Khan wrong Mrs. Banner at 2 a.m. to accuse her of promoting the fight or prompting the fight. As a result of this fight, council leader Ian Ward organised a meeting between himself and Mrs. Banner and Mr. Saqib Khan. All of this is in Jess Phillips's backyard. Mr. Zafar used his plans to run for the leader of council as a means of exercising leverage over Mrs. Banner, saying to her that he would give her a lucrative cabinet position. Any of this sound familiar? When he was leader in return for loyalty? Any of that sound familiar? Mrs. Banner refused this, stating that she wanted to work honestly. She got elected. Mr. Saqib Khan would hear that Mrs. Banner was out campaigning by herself. He would reportedly speed over to where she was in her car to deny her the ability to campaign on her own initiative. She was elected on 7th of May 2022. Mr. Imran came with the proposition to Mrs. Banner that she considers running for an MP and whether she would challenge Liam Brown MP and stand for Hodge Hill. She was reluctant to do so. She refused to stand against Liam Byrne. She would be going against Islam and would be subsequently punished. Let me read that again. Mrs. Banner was reluctant to do so, to which Mr. Imran responded, "This is part of an Islamic jihad in Birmingham against non-Muslim MPs." And that if Mrs. Banner refused to stand against Liam Byrne MP, she would be going against Islam and would be consequently punished. Mr. Imran responding that this is part of an Islamic jihad in Birmingham. Mrs. Bano was shocked and appalled at this language. Her husband left the room whilst Mrs. Bano made very clear to Mr. Imran that the seriousness of his comments. Mrs. Bano was a teacher during the Trojan horse scandal, which had profoundly damaged the local Muslim community. She argued that Mr. Imran's use of such a term, along with his behaviour and that of his allies, would eventually result in a Trojan horse investigation into Birmingham City Council and would further alienate Muslims. Mr. Imran did not seem concerned to this and stated that he would not leave without an answer. She managed to get him to leave. And Mr. Imran, by the way, was an ex-governor at Golden Hillcock School, apparently. Sacked due to his role in the Trojan horse affair. So he's now part of the Labour Party politics. In Jess Phillips's backyard. Leadership vote. It was presented that as a Muslim, she was expected to vote for Councillor Zafar, regardless of her own views. Sectarian politics now. Yeah. Mrs. Bano greatly resented this and refused to give in to peer pressure and vote for Councillor Zafar, particularly due to her own experiences of Councillor Zafar during a campaign, as well as knowledge of Councillor Zafar's past behaviour towards his ex-wife, with whom Mrs. Bano is close friends. Eventually, Councillor Zafar and his supporters and the council suspected Mrs. Bano had not voted. As such, these individuals began to approach Mrs. Bano's family members to air grievances about her behaviour and to further undermine her standing within the local area. Councillor Rassad made sexist comments about Mrs. Bano in front of other councillors to further undermine her, whilst others claimed she would pay for her betrayal. I'll stab you in the front, not in the back. Remember, this is the culture of the MP. Someone citing, who'd worked with her, that he wanted to fuck her up, as she did not know how to properly respect men. Backyard of Jess Phillips. It should also be noted that Mr. Ashraf now works in the constituency office of a recently elected Labour MP. This goes on. There's a section I want to get to. Most recently, phone calls have been made to Mrs. Bano's husband, expressing utter disgust at how he can stand and watch his wife have affairs with white men, calling him an insult to mankind and a failure as a man as he cannot control his wife. The most recent incident was on the 11th of July 2022. Mr. Iqbal and Mr. Ahmed, Shabana Mahmood's father apparently. That's the Justice Minister, I think, Shabana Mahmood, had made a call to Mrs. Bano's family relative, the same relative that arranged the initially meeting in August 2021. In this conversation, it was expressed how annoyed they were with Mrs. Bano to reporting them to the whip, and that Mrs. Bano needs to know that we will do the same to her as we did to former Councillor Safia. That's another story. And they wanted it investigating. So what you've got here is a councillor, a female councillor, suffering the most horrific form of misogyny from a gang of Pakistani men, reporting it to the Labour Party. Birmingham, Jess Phillips, yeah. I would have asked Jess Phillips if she knew her. I would have asked Jess Phillips if there had been an investigation and if she would be willing to share the Labour Party report of the investigation. Then, of course, I would have used that prior to today's votes and probably prior to yesterday's sub-story. My friends, that's not all I would have done. This is the Daily Mail. Fury at police bid to protect grooming gangs. Officers said naming them would have breached human rights. So the police in Birmingham, you can see the story, the police in Birmingham try to protect members of these grooming gangs' names. And the police claimed that naming them would have breached their human rights. I'm not joking. Men from Birmingham are Omar Ahmed, Sajid Hussain, Mohammed Anjem, Nasim Khan, Mohammed Javed and Alam Shah. They've been banned from approaching any girl under the age of 18. The High Court heard how 3 of them found in a hotel with a girl in care. And a landmark ruling is despite police not having enough evidence to convict. So even though 3 men were found in a hotel with a girl, they didn't have enough evidence to convict. You can't make it up, can you? In an unprecedented move, the men have been banned from contacting children after were found to be grooming a vulnerable girl, luring, because she's 17, she's still considered, the rules around girls in care and vulnerable children are different. The 17-year-olds into cars and hotel rooms. A judge said he was sure they were engaging in sexual exploitation and said their excuses were lies and nonsense. So these lads, nice lads, family lads, convicted in the High Court. The police asked for an anonymity order to honour the duty of care to the abusers, and their human rights included the right to family life. The judge dismissed all of this and they had to be named. The 6 Birmingham men have escaped prosecution because the police could not persuade girls who may have been victims to give evidence against them in court. I wouldn't give evidence against these men. Particularly when the police have been successfully recruited to try and protect these men. You see what I'm getting at? How powerful these people are? How connected these people are? Apparently, victims may have been unwilling to give evidence or regarding as unable to withstand hostile cross-examination by lawyers. I don't think that was the reason at all. Three of the men were caught red-handed sexually exploiting the vulnerable teenager in a hotel room. What does that mean? Were they caught naked, perhaps? Three of the men were caught red-handed. 2 more were caught as they apparently piled her with vodka in their car late at night. Police said there was little evidence of a prosecution. Tory MP Philip Davis said there should be open justice, and if people are thought to be in danger to children, then the public have a right to know about it. If we are going to protect children, then we need to know who is a threat. It is the job of the police to make sure there is law and order. If anyone or any group try to do anything against these two men, that is the job of the police to deal with it. Of course. John Hemming, Liberal Democrat MP for Birmingham Yardley. So is that where Jess Phillips is now the MP for? Let me just check that. Jess Phillips MP. Who's the Yardley MP? Just check. Have I got that wrong? Oh, look, Yardley MP. The MP now is Jess Phillips. Oh, but this happened before my time. Well, Jess Phillips was still a councillor at the time, and if she was running in the election, she would have known about this high-profile case, wouldn't she? So grooming gangs, Pakistani grooming gangs operating in her backyard, would not be new to her. She wouldn't have to talk about Telford. Surely she would talk about how she had been fighting the scourge of Pakistani grooming gangs in Yardley. If I was an investigative journalist and I've read this article, I would then go to find out what the MP for Yardley had done, not in Telford, not across other parts of the country, but in Yardley, where she is the MP. You can't accuse her of anything there. Actually, I can ask her about the rape gangs in her own constituency, proven, and what work has took place in Yardley to safeguard and raise awareness in these communities. And I would ask the question, where did the request come from for these men to have their identities hidden? Who instructed the police to make that argument? Who instructed the CPS to make that argument? Of course, in Rochdale, we have exposed how serving councillors gave members of the grooming gang references. In Oldham, the deputy leader of the council can't recall if he gave Shabir Ahmed a reference. I'd like to think he could recall that. There's no recollection. No, mate, this isn't actually sound like a Jim McMahon. This is the exact same pattern in these Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Muslim areas. Here we've got the grooming gangs operating. Here we've got a clan structure with misogyny and all the rest of it, and the presence of controlling votes. Postal votes. And here we've got a police force who want to protect the identities of 3 men who were found in a hotel room with a child. It doesn't say here what the state of dress of the 3 men were. Well, I want to just go back so I've got it right. Bear with me. Apparently, these men, the police argued, a lawyer for West Midlands Police said the men, some of whom had criminal records, one for a sex offence already, could be attacked by vigilantes. So we need to keep these people, these convicted criminals' names secret in case they are attacked by vigilantes. We need to protect the perpetrators. Yardley. Yeah, caught red-handed. Sorry, just bear with me. Yeah. 3 of the men were caught red-handed, sexually exploiting the vulnerable teenager in a hotel room. They don't expand on what that means. But even then, the police felt, and this isn't 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the police felt that they did not have a chance of a realistic prosecution, even though my understanding, my information from my sources in Yardley is that the police raided the hotel and found this girl there. So the police witnessed it. And let's just say there was not a lot of clothes being worn, which is what they mean by caught red-handed. Yeah? Yardley. So what work has been done in Yardley? No, Raja, let's carry on. Let's carry on. Because I'm not an investigative journalist. I'm a man who likes to drink Vimto. Are you ready for the best bit? There is a story I have to tell you. I will keep the names anonymous. There is a man, or was a man, who was trying to make it big in the Labour Party. Wanted to become a councillor and make his way up the chain like so many do from these communities. Because it gives them status, it gives them power. And you would go to Bangladesh. Let's say Bangladesh, because I'm from Bangladesh. Well, I'm not from Bangladesh, but you know what I mean. I've been Bangladesh twice, and both times it was on behalf of the government, so I'm not from there at all. And then a member of the community got a phone call from Bangladesh, where this other man had visited, to say this scumbag has raped a child. The concerned member of the community would then, being a concerned member of the community, looking and thinking, okay, so this guy wants to be a councillor, he's wandering around with senior Labour Party figures. Yeah. I, being the responsible citizen I am, will go and warn the MP at their office, gender neutral, their office. Went to the office, and lo and behold, as is so many MPs, the MP's partner works for them. So he had a chat with the MP's partner, and he was promised that he'd get a call back. He did get a call back from the office manager or something in the MP's office, who wanted the allegations in writing. Just seen what happened to this poor lady in Birmingham. So this gentleman was apprehensive, but nonetheless, he emailed the allegations. He waited, and he waited. and nothing came back. And the next he sees is that this man, who he had now confirmed had done some horrific actions with a child in Bangladesh, and he'd reported that through the official communication channels of the MP's office. This man is now standing as a Labour Party candidate. He's pictured in photographs with the MP. He's pictured in photographs with some of the other men who are involved elsewhere, who have dodgy associations. This man is now a Labour Party councillor, I hear. If I was an investigative journalist, I would be asking the MP, particularly if that MP was in a prominent safeguarding role, say for women or girls, just exactly what their office did with that concern, that whistleblowing. Of course, in a town like Oldham, the only reason a man like that would be protected and promoted into the role of a councillor was because of the block votes that he came with, and that he could then provide the MP when they were standing for election. If I was an investigative journalist, that is what I would be doing. And if someone had contacted me, I would have handed over an entire dossier of evidence that would have seen the resignation or the suspension of an MP, one of the most powerful MPs in this country, before the crocodile tears were ever on the news. Of course, I am in a position to go to Bangladesh, to an area called Tazpur. That's my Bangladeshi accent. Tazpur, I think it's called. With my camera and interview the now 20-something-year-old. I can do that. I could also raise awareness of how this councillor, I think, has 2 wives or 3 wives now. Might have gone through them from one to another, where I don't necessarily think they're simultaneous, and there's like a 30-year age gap. I could do all of that. And then I could show photographs of the samosas of the councillor and this gentleman, and maybe another gentleman who's been involved in some of the other Islamic Jihad nonsense. And I could maybe put all the jigsaw pieces together. I think Mr. Musk would have a field day, don't you? But no, I'm not going to do that. And the reason I'm not going to do that is because I've put my life at risk enough so far. And until these fuckwits who jump on a bandwagon, come into towns like mine, don't understand what's gone on properly, tell a story and then fuck off, and use and abuse my people and my communities for short-term gain. No. So when you've grown up And if you want to deal with this properly, then come and see me, and I will have an adult conversation with you. 6 years and 20 years before that, I am not where I am by accident. And I am not a piece on someone else's board. So there we have it. Perhaps if this information had been available, today would have played out differently. Indeed. Put your big boy pants on. I'm happy to screen grab that letter and put it online. I have no issue of doing that. There are questions that the Labour Party in Birmingham clearly need to answer. And you've seen it's a matter of public record because it's in a Birmingham newspaper. And the Birmingham newspaper itself references this document that's been leaked online. But that's nothing compared to the other story I shared with you. Because if it plays out the way I suspect it will play out, here is a powerful man in the Labour Party, now a serving councillor, who goes overseas to rape children. That's the allegation. And the Labour Party were informed. And now he's still a councillor, or has become a councillor when he was just an activist beforehand. So the obvious question for me would be, and remember there's an email trail here, and I have the names of the people that this guy went and met, and I've cross-referenced the names and the dates and the times and the positions they were in. I've dotted my I's and I've crossed my T's. If that MP did not contact the police to report the case, and if the police, then if they were contacted, did not investigate the case, then what does that make it? I had no issue with Jess Phillips until she denied the people of my town a public inquiry. I took particular offence to Jess Phillips when she tried to then take us for fools and say local-based inquiry and defend her position, when she knew that a local-based inquiry did not have the statutory powers to compel witnesses. And I do not believe that any inquiry anywhere in this country will succeed until there is statutory powers to compel witnesses to testify on stand whether they want to or not, and for the investigators to go after documents without having to rely on those under investigation to provide the documents. And they're crying and tears, well, that's just normal Labour Party behaviour. It's what Arud Shah did to me. But if Jess Phillips or any of her associates are watching, or anyone in the Labour Party that is watching, go and ask McMahon what this man did to him. Go and ask Sean Fielding, Amanda Chadderton, Arood Shah, and all the others that we in our town removed using the sort of tactics never deployed this way before. And if we can do it in a town, we sure as hell can go and do it across the country. And this public inquiry will come. This dam has been burst. And if you are an investigative journalist, and if you are prepared to speak with me on the record, then I am more than prepared to hand over what I've got, which will, I believe, if it plays out the way I think it will play out, destroy the career of a senior government minister. And no, before anyone from the police gets any ideas, all of my evidence has been disseminated to trusted sources in places you will never get to. If you found value in this transmission, and you're joining us new, please do consider the Red Wall and the Rabble site. That's the best place where I can work out how to pay my bills. It's only £3 a month you can play from. We've earned enough for all of my work to continue free, as long as people then don't start cancelling the subscriptions, which has happened before, until the summer is where we're up to, if I'm honest with you. I'm grateful to so many of you from all over the world who found me and thought, hold on, who is this guy? And I'm going to support him. I will never be able to repay that kindness. So I'm grateful to those of you who are complete strangers to me, who financially supported me and thrown me some money and thinking, actually, no, this is a guy worth standing by. The simple truth is, the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children in Oldham was exposed by me, amplified by a small community of people. And that's what led to Jess Phillips's letter. And Jess Phillips's letter was put online by me. It was hidden on the council webpage. Go and check the timestamps. And then others ran with it. And the only time I got pissed off was not when they were speaking to victims and survivors, that's fine. It's when they decided to come to my town and give oxygen to a Pakistani sectarian instead of contacting me. Because the world I want to live in is not one where there's some form of Islamic jihad going on, or whatever it is that poor frightened councillor from Birmingham had to endure. My intention is to return on Sunday night. I don't do Thursdays and Fridays. I am a part-time father. So I have my daughter, and the small amount of time I get with my daughter, try and invest with her. What I would like to ask all of you before we go, I'm away on Saturday. I'm going to London to speak at a podcast, the Heretics podcast. So I'm catching the train down, but I'm going earlier on to Oldham Town Centre. The Kerry and her team, the Let Women Speak. Is it Posey Parker? I think she is online. One of the bravest women I've come across is marching in Oldham. I genuinely believe when people come to stand alongside us, we have a duty, we have a responsibility to stand alongside them. This is a matter no longer confined to one small northern town, which is where we started. This is now a matter in towns and cities across the entire country. And we have a responsibility to stand beside each and every one of them. Especially if you're a woman, please get to the town centre on Saturday and stand by those of us who are coming to our town to stand by us. If you're a man, at women's events, my advice always is, of course, go and support them. When it's let women speak, let women lead, and our job is to support them. I'm just reading, that's it. Yep, she's coming to Oldham. Support her. There is a council meeting on the 20th, which is a week on Monday. For those of you who live in Oldham, if you can, or you can come from outside if you want, please get to that meeting. It's on a Monday. This is the first meeting after what's took place. You need to get there. We need to get there. And show solidarity with the councillors in that chamber who are fighting for us. They draw their strength from us in person, not on a keyboard, hiding behind, I know I'm busy, if I wasn't doing this or that. You've got enough notice. Get to that council meeting. And for those who've contacted me about Brian Hobin and his apparently the council voice on CSC now, it's okay. And those of you who've contacted me about Mark Ince sending smear campaigns everywhere about me, that's okay. This agenda, this campaign has been driven by us, working together, and now we've got the sort of reinforcements that they had never dreamt we would have. And you're worried about losing a vote? This is only just getting started. Watch what we do to them in Parliament. I just need Reform to get in touch with me and hopefully take me up on my offer of wanting to help them shape this. And if not, the Conservatives get in touch with me, because the dance I will lead them on, Keir Starmer will have no idea what to do, and every one of them will keep looking towards Jim McMahon and calling him names. My testimony is now out there. I put my face out there. It's gone across the world. There are other news agencies from all across the world who are now getting in touch with me. No one from the UK. I've had French news agencies, Canadian ones, American ones, German ones. But no one from the UK, a mainstream news agency, will yet run my story. So, we will continue. If you find value, what time is the meeting? The council meeting. The council meetings are usually 6 o'clock, brother. Is what time the council meetings usually start. So I reckon 5:30 to queue up. And they do, I've been in prisons with less security checks than Oldham council meetings. So if you find value in this transmission, at the very least, like, subscribe to the channel. If you can, please consider buying me a coffee or using the PayPal link. And I will see you all on Sunday, but be in no doubt there'll be updates on here. And honestly, to any genuine journalist out there who cares about safeguarding children, yes, I do have a dossier in my hands that I'm willing to hand over if you're prepared to sit down and speak to me, that will take out a senior government minister. My name is Raja MIAH, and as always, it's been a pleasure.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.